Positive Lens Podcast. I'm your host, Scott T. Each week, we will bring you positive law enforcement news stories from across the globe, shared by departments and citizens like yourself. In our Getting to Know Your Local Leo segment, we will speak with a member of the law enforcement community about everyday life and most things non-law enforcement, as we hope to adjust your focus so you see that members of your local law enforcement community are not much different than you and me.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 22. This is part 2 of Getting to Know Your Local Leo, John Kelly, Overcoming Alcoholism, Addiction, and Adultery. John is a retired sergeant of the Broward County Sheriff's Office, where he spent 30 years in South Florida. He will continue speaking with us about overcoming his personal challenges, everyday non-law enforcement life, and his new passion as an author, motivational speaker, and founder of Law Enforcement Life Coach. Let's continue with the episode.
I'd get in bed and Nicole would get out of bed and start her day. And we did this charade for months, a half a year. Wow. And, we started going to therapy, marriage counseling. And believe it or not, in counseling, I could say things to the therapist in front of Nicole that I could never say to Nicole.
Isn't that amazing?
It was the most. It was my first encounter with therapy. I probably needed it, before, but I just never took advantage of it. And
that wasn't the question to the AP. That was more about the alcohol.
Yeah,
it wasn't about the marriage.
Yeah, holy smokes. I went ahead and my wife, like, her jaw dropped. She's like, I never knew. Like, I would bring up things every session. She was like, I had no idea. Like, how were you supposed to know? I never communicated any of these issues or problems that I had. And, she said something that was very impactful. And, to this day, I share it when I present. She said, I needed to own my 1%. And so when there's a problem in a relationship, man, unfortunately, sometimes everybody wants to blame, man.
Right.
And
it's easier.
It is. And she said, this may be 99% your fault and 1% mine. She said, but I got to own my 1%. I'm responsible for the health of this relationship. If I'm in a relationship with you, I have to be responsible for its health just as much as you. You're not in a relationship by yourself.
Right.
And so, that takeaway is, listen, you don't have to like what happens, but own your 1%. Own your 1%. And if you do that, in any situation, if you own it, then you can be part of the solution. If you shift, deflect, refuse to take any measure of responsibility, then there's no way to move forward.
No. With
that philosophy. And so, and her accepting her 1% wasn't condoning. It wasn't excusing. It wasn't it was just saying, for better or for worse, I play a role in this relationship. I bring something to the table, and maybe I need to bring something different to the table.
And I said, I could see that making an impact, because in your mind going in there, you're thinking the fingers are pointed at you.
Well, as they should be. I was completely taken aback by her position and her statement. She's, through our conversation, she said, I'm sure there are things that I can improve upon. Wow. Okay. Yeah. And of course, coming through all of that, one of the takeaways that I learned is that, for a very long time, I absolutely hated myself, and so it's impossible for you to love someone else if you don't love yourself.
Right. You got to start with yourself.
Right.
Not egotistically with yourself, but you got to accept yourself, love yourself in a fashion that you have to accept who you are and be who you are and embrace yourself. Because if you can't love yourself, how could you possibly have affection for someone else?
So I had a lot of repair work, right? I had a lot of getting back to being that person that she fell in love with on March 10th, 1995, right? I had a long road to get back to that, being that guy. And it's amazing when you're intentional about things, what you can do. It's amazing when you make things a priority. When you shift focus and you make the things that you've ignored a priority, there's a road, there's a path back. It's not easy.
That's not easy, but there is a path.
There is a path, man. There is a path.
You mentioned in one of your, for those, with your website, life coach, right? So
Sure.
You mentioned in your video there about the touching of your shoulder.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I mean, and that's not something you hear people say,
Right.
But if you would like to tell the audience a little about what does that mean to you?
Yeah. Oh my God. So, what I do is when I speak, I talk about, there are other people that have come before me that have figured things out, and I share what they've figured out, to the room, right? So you got Dr. Gary Chapman and the 5 love languages. Words of affirmation, quality time, physical touch, acts of service, and holy smokes. Words of affirmation, quality time, physical touch, acts of service, and gift giving. There. Oh,
There you go.
put me on the spot, man. I had to memorize that. And so, when you're with a spouse, you communicate one of those ways, all those ways. Some are more dominant than other, but you don't know. It's especially if you don't even know that it exists. And for me, like, my wife would always give me hints on what her love language was, right? She'd say, hey, before you go to work, could you clean the smudges on the glass? And, if just take the wet clothes out of the washer and just put them on the dryer and just hit the button. And so, like, she's telling me that me showing her love falls under acts of service, doing little things.
Right. Yeah. These aren't big extravagant gifts or anything.
No,
These are literally small, simple things that are
small,
gestures
simple
and acts
things.
to do. Yes.
Right. And me, because I'm such a dumbass, I'm too busy. I got to go to work. I just worked a detail. I've been up for a day and a half. I don't have time to do that. What I'm telling her is that she's unimportant and I don't care. I don't think that's what I'm saying, but that's how it's interpreted. And for me, I said, don't buy me nothing. Don't tell me nothing. I said, but when we're out, when we're walking someplace, like, if you just put your hand on my shoulder, hold my hand, my heart soars. I am unstoppable as a man. Nothing makes my heart more full. But she doesn't know that.
Because you don't tell her.
I don't tell her that. I never have that conversation with her. And so when we're out, it's so amazing. So when I'll preemptively do some things. Like, I won't, if I'm always the first one out of bed. I'm always up early, but I'll go, when she's out of bed, I go back into the bedroom and I make the bed for her.
That's impressive, John.
It takes me 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
But I know that's going to make her heart feel good. When she looks in the bedroom and sees the bed already made, I'm in my office working and I hear her yell, "Thank you." Like, I know what she's talking about.
Right.
And we were walking. It happens all the time, but we were walking. I just got done presenting at a conference, and I'm walking through this huge lobby, and I'm drained. Like, I'm ready to cry, man. Like, when I present, Scott, I leave it all on in the room, man. I give everybody all of me, and I'm done, man. And I'm walking, and she's like walking like half a step behind me, and and then she comes up behind me and puts her hands on my shoulder, stops, spins me around, and just holds me for, it seemed like an hour, but it was probably 10 seconds. back.
Yeah, she just
I'm
brought you back on
back.
the high. I mean, she
I'm
just took
back.
a drained man back to a full life.
Just by her physical touch. And so, like, understanding that about each other, we're unstoppable. But that, like, again, that is born from a lot of pain and bad decisions and not communicating. And so that's why I say to the room, I said, when you get home, man, and if you're not going to be home for a little bit, call your significant other and ask them, what is it that I do that makes your heart sore? Have that conversation. Because not knowing doesn't improve your relationship.
And it's no excuse for not doing it.
Right. It's simple. It's a simple way to express love that is so often overlooked. I think when we end up, moving and going in different directions or getting divorced, it's very rarely is it one incident. It's a series, man. It's a pattern and a series of indifference and neglect, not in a physical way, but maybe in a spiritual, emotional way that just, it gets past the tipping point.
And something you mentioned is it's most common in law enforcement. You guys work a lot of overtime, pick up a lot of extra shifts.
Yeah.
But many of us through our careers are chasing success.
No doubt.
John Wooden has a wonderful definition of success, and oftentimes people would even ask me my version of success, and I try to explain the definition of success is different from each person, and everyone measures it differently. But in that chase, to have that, it's not based on how many hours you work. If I told you, hey, John, I work 60 hours a week, that's not a badge of honor because I probably just been away from home for 15 more than should have been, right?
No doubt. Yeah, well said.
And in the part that you mentioned, when we were putting in extra hours, we're trying to achieve this level.
Right.
We're neglecting the ones that are supporting us.
No doubt.
Those hours, we're also losing those talking points. Because I'm sure you've done it. I know I've done it. You come home, your wife's in bed.
Oh, yeah.
The morning you wake up, you're going to a shift on work. Your wife's not there. And now you're 2-3 days gone by, and your only interaction was sleeping next to each other for a brief period of time, but there's no communication.
No, it's it's the reasons behind it, they vary from person to person.
Right.
I know that at work I was a superstar. Work was easy, man. That's where you got all the accolades. That's where, and so, we're like water, man. We take the path of least resistance. So home's hard, home's difficult. I've got to be present at home. I've got to show up. I've got to be a better version of who I am at home. Well, I think I might just grab some overtime tonight. I think I might just work a double because that's going to be a lot easier than me having to be a really good husband or father. It sounds kind of crappy to say that, but when we aren't intentional and when we're not having tough conversations and when we don't see the value in having tough conversations, then we do whatever we need to do to avoid it. And we can't argue if I'm not home.
And what you said earlier, your circle of friends that went from, I'll call it the bar crew, to the work crew, all the same culture for everybody. So now everybody is saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to take the double because I don't want to go have the conversation at home. Not verbally those exact words, but everybody's doing the
We're
same
commiserating, thing. Right? We're nobody's checking
unintentionally in some respect, but intentional in others.
Yeah, nobody's checking anybody. We're all in this miserable thing together,
So let's transition. So you went through your law enforcement career.
Yeah.
Promoted through the ranks. Different challenges in different relationship with your wife, like challenges there.
Yes.
Still a father. And then retirement comes. And law enforcement officers, like many in first responders, that transition to Chapter 2 or Chapter 32, whatever you want to call it, that transition to the next phase is not easy.
Right.
But you've made a successful transition to the next phase. So
I have.
Tell us how your life is different now than it was before you retired, and then we'll go into a little bit more about your book, the website, what you're doing. So what's been that for you? Tell us about phase 2 and what it's been like since
Scott.
you've been retired.
So, like, I had that epiphany, man. I was in the motor barn with my guys. We're having some Cuban coffee, and everybody's talking like, "What's Sarge going to do in retirement?" Right? We're having this open discussion, and it was comical at times. Somebody would come up with some ludicrous, comment that I don't even want to repeat. But we would have a good laugh about it, and one guy was like, "Well, I saw this Amazon course that you can take, and you can buy stuff, for $2 and buy 1,000,000 of them and sell them for $3, and you're going to make $1 million." And I'm just going, "What are you?" I'm like, I don't know what. And then one of my buddies, he's a dear friend named Scott McGordy. He said, "Man, why don't you do what you've always done?" With the deliberate pause, right? I'm like, "Well,
Yeah.
what the heck is that, man? This could not be a good thing, right?" And he said, "You've always taken care of us. Why don't you just do that for people you haven't met yet?"
Wow.
I'm like, I can do that, man. Like, that's in my wheelhouse. That's like, I love doing that. Like, I love doing that to a fault. And so I had spent some time in training, and I had realized that we train our people, we check boxes, man. We don't give them the training that they need in life. We give them the training that's mandated by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and so we don't have problems and issues doing police work.
Yeah. That's, like you said, that's the easy part for you.
It's the easy part, man. Where we struggle, Scott, is with life. Nobody ever teaches us, Scott. Nobody ever shows us how to be a better husband, how to be a better father. Nobody shows us how to be a better spouse. Nobody shows us how to be better human beings, right? Because if we're a better human being, man, then every aspect of our life that we touch, every person we come in contact with, while working, while off duty, if we're a better human being, we're adding value to everyone's life, including our own.
100%.
And so, but we fail in law enforcement. We don't teach you. We don't develop courses to address any of the things that are our kryptonite. Like, we talk about our relationships, and I'm just going to circle back real quick.
Yeah.
We know that for every bad guy that kills one of us, 2 to 3 of us take our own lives.
Right. Yeah.
We know this.
That's the statistics right out.
For every bad guy that kills, and they've been doing a really damn good job of it lately, right? We've been losing officers 2 and 3 at a time in the last few weeks. It's horrible. But for every bad guy that kills one of us, 2 to 3 of us take our own lives. Of those 2 to 3, Scott, that take their own lives, half the time it's the result of a divorce. How much training do we do, Scott, to enhance your marriage?
None.
We do 0, Scott. It's the number one reason why you don't go home. You spend an entire career, an entire life, fighting for your life on the street. And at the end of the day, you're the biggest threat to you going home, dying by your own hand. It's absolute insanity. And so I saw this need. Like, we've got to change the narrative. We've got to make self-care a priority. We've got to make you taking care of you so you can be there intentionally in your relationships. So it was just like, how are we not talking about this? So I started this program. I had a training background. I said, we're going to take a holistic approach to wellness. Our relationships, our culture at work, our finances, because that kind of weighs in on everything that we do, our physical and mental health. We're going to look at the whole of the person. We're going to have tough conversations about relationships, about substance abuse, about our financial wellness, and we're going to have conversations about our physical and mental health. We're going to talk about PTS and suicide, and we're going to have real, raw conversations, but more importantly, we're going to have workable, sustainable solutions that can be implemented immediately. We're going to give you tools to be a better human being. And this second chapter, Scott, I did 30 years in law enforcement, and I thought upon exiting that was going to be my legacy. Silly. I have done more, not by my own calculation, but by the conversations and the letters and the emails and the phone calls that I've received from the people that I've spoken to. My legacy is going to be made in this second chapter. That I've impacted positively, changed more lives in the 3.5 years that I've been doing this than I did in 30 as a deputy sheriff down in Broward County, Florida, because I'm now taking care of the people that have been taking care of you. And so that second chapter has been full of gratitude and just blessings. When people say, "Oh, I'm blessed," like if you've never lost a reason to wake up tomorrow, then you don't. I think it might be difficult for you to put a value on life, if that makes sense, Scott.
It does, because sometimes you don't really realize the importance of why you're trying to do something until you've lost it.
Yeah, man. I think that sometimes it's not until you almost lose everything that you can appreciate having something. And so I've been given a gift, man. I've been given a second chance, and I've been given this ability. Like, I'm horrible at a lot of things, Scott. Like, listen, don't ask me to balance your checkbook, bro, because you're gonna end up bouncing a lot of checks there. Yeah, you're either gonna have way more money than you thought you had, or not as much as you
Not
did.
as much as you need.
No, but the one thing, Scott, that I've been blessed with being able to do is to connect and instill a sense of to empower and to allow people to look in the mirror and initially maybe not like the person looking back, but enable them to have some tough conversations with themselves and get to a place of accepting and then growing and in doing that and acknowledging that your past doesn't define you. Like what defines you is what you do right now in the moment. Right. And letting people know that we're all human, man. We all have shit, man. There isn't anybody walking amongst us that's got it all figured out. And I think that if we just are a little kinder to each other, right? We don't have to like each other, man. But I think the price of admission, if we're going to be walking this earth, is to be kind. Right. Kindness.
Costs nothing to do. Takes no effort to do it.
No, man. And I think that is the level, entry level price of admission to this ride is to be kind. And with that, I would say caring, right? We're not liking, but caring. I think there's a more moral obligation, if we're walking this earth, to care for our fellow human being. And I think that if we can do that, man, if we can acknowledge that we all have a past and we're all imperfect, we're perfectly imperfect, and that maybe, just maybe, the way forward for us as a profession, as a society, as a human race, is to spread and show more kindness. I don't think it's a novel concept. I certainly didn't come up with it, but I'm a big proponent of it, man. And I think that's the way out of the darkness and moving towards a world where love, it's not something that makes people feel uncomfortable, that like it's okay and it's necessary. It's a necessary part of living. if that makes sense, man. And I'm sorry for the rant, bro. But
No, it makes sense. It's not a rant, it's passion. It's hard to fathom, but from talking to you, there's no question from the first time you're in the ride along why you became a police officer and law enforcement. But your passion in chapter 2 is shining through. I mean, and you're, like you said, you're helping the individuals that protect us now.
Right. That's the goal.
But, I also want to go, you mentioned about acceptance. And I know you've talked about this recently. People often say, oh, I regret this, or I have no regrets. The word regrets has a negative connotation. But you talk about how regrets doesn't necessarily have to be the negative thing about your life. You have to do something with that piece of it. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Sure. I mean, I don't, sometimes it's, semantics, right? Word play. I think that my point in all of that is there are things that I regret deeply. I regret the pain that I caused others. To say I don't regret that, I don't know what kind of person that makes me, right? What I'm not saying is that you don't learn from that. Of course you learn from that. You don't make the same mistake twice. You take the value of the experience and you make a negative experience and you turn it into a positive. And so, like, often people will say, well, I don't have any regrets because if things didn't happen to me the way they did, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. All right, in theory, I understand that, but I would argue that you could still be where you're at right now without carving a rut of pain and despair in innocent people's lives. Right? Like, so without, doing a Kamala Harris word salad, that which is unburdened, I have no idea what the hell we're talking about, Scott. My whole point is, listen, regrets, right? Was it Sinatra? I had a few, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then again, too few to mention.
Yeah. Right. And so it's about learning from your past. It's about forgiving yourself. It's, I don't regret the things that happened to me that brought me to this place. I regret the unintended pain and suffering of others. If it was solely left to, if it rested with me, well, it's where I'm at, right? Then I'm a product of that. But I wasn't the only one who was hurt. And so I don't know that other people were better off for the pain that they were a victim of, right? So for that, I deeply regret that. And so, but there's a way forward. And that way forward is owning it, accepting it, and never forgetting it. See, because this is the other thing, man. If it happens once, it's a mistake. Happens twice, 3 times. How many mistakes, right? Before it's not a mistake.
Yeah.
That it's you. It's your intentional action. And so learning from those failures is, and growing from them is the lesson.
I appreciate that, John. I want to go through a few more things for you before we wrap up this episode.
Sure.
I know. Want to go back to, you have the 12-step approach. You cover, across 12 different states.
Yes.
Including the state I'm in now, New Mexico. So you're bringing this out. So if there's individuals who are interested in learning about your program and they wanted to go ahead and connect with you on it, how can they reach you about the program?
Oh, Scott, thank you so much. The best way to get in touch with me is through the website. It's lawenforcementlifecoach.com. lawenforcementlifecoach.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn. As you know, I'm pretty active there, Facebook, Instagram. But yeah, the website directly has a scheduling link, makes it super easy to connect.
Excellent. And then, talk about it on this episode yet, but you do have the book, surviving self-inflicted wounds,
Yeah.
and Deputy's life of redemption. Now, I
Yeah.
know some of the stories you mentioned today are captured in your book.
Yeah, most certainly.
Can you express to the listeners who are not members of law enforcement how they can also, when reading it, say, you know what, I understand this because while my career is not a law enforcement officer, what John's talking about, any one of us could go through in our own lives.
Yeah, Scott. That's man, look at you throwing up some softballs, bro. You're a true professional, sir. You know, my surviving self-inflicted wounds, a deputy's life of redemption. It's about the human condition. It doesn't matter what your occupation is. It's there are times in our lives, there are struggles that I believe are universal. Whether you're running an academic program at a university, or you're picking up garbage on a Saturday afternoon in the neighborhood in the back of a truck, we all have life struggles, and I think universally we're a carbon copy of each other to a greater or lesser extent. My troubles are your troubles, brother, and your troubles are mine. And I think that once we realize that, the humanity of people, I think that there's a way for us to become not only part of our own solution, but part of each other's solution.
This podcast obviously emphasizes the fact that law enforcement officers are just like everyone else. And of course,
Yeah,
when I
man.
say that, law enforcement officers are cut from a different cloth when it comes to the work they choose to go into, right? Not everybody can be a police officer because it takes a certain mindset and an act of service. And if you don't have an act of service in you, then it's not the right field. Just like fireman, nurse, teacher, it has to be your passion. So when I
Sure.
say, the same, but the challenges that we face, we all go through them. In the
Right.
profession that we're in, it's just that.
100%. Well
Now,
said, Scott.
Instead of a softball question, we'll throw a curveball.
Oh, man.
You're an avid reader.
Yes.
I know that. If you have your chance to go back in history and sit down and have a deep conversation with some historical figure, who is it?
I'm going to throw you a curveball.
I was pitching. I'm not hitting.
No. It would be my dad.
Really?
I never had a real conversation with him. He left my mom when I was in my late 30s, early 40s.
Okay.
And Scott, can I tell you, I never, and as a grown man, it's one of my failures that I can't do anything about. I never had a real conversation with my dad. And I would give anything to do that. There were a bunch of tough conversations that should have happened that I never had with the man. And those are regrets that I'll always have.
Right. And those are, you talk about regrets and pain. Now, those are inflicted on you only.
Yeah, unfortunately at this
possibly-
time.
But possibly by extension, maybe your father had those same thoughts.
This is the thing, and I don't want to belabor the point, but I don't think that he had the skill sets to have a tough conversation either.
Wow.
Right? And so it's only now at this stage of my life that I understand the importance of them, that I would force that conversation. But that didn't happen when I had the opportunity. And so that remains a regret. And to be, and I know he's not a historical figure in that regard, but in my life he was.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, and that is a curveball, but there's truth to that, right? It's not.
Right.
That's the conversation that you would have liked to have had.
No doubt. With him more than anybody.
I appreciate you sharing that, John. I do.
Oh, my pleasure.
So tell us a little bit more. The website, Law Enforcement Life Coach. We
Yep.
have that. We have the 12-step program. You told us what led to it. Now, but you told us how it led to it. You had the conversations.
Yep.
But then you also have the podcast.
Sure.
So your podcast is different than your 12-step program.
Right.
So tell us more about the podcast, so how people can also listen to it as well, because
Sure.
you bring in, I know it's chapter 2, but you have like sub chapters in chapter 2 here.
Yeah,
In
man.
the book, the 12 steps, and your podcast
Yeah.
is different than your book.
Yeah, though. So we've got the book, Surviving Self-Inflicted Wounds. We've got the Sometimes Heroes Need Help, taking a tactical approach to personal development and team building program. And then we've got the podcast. I love the podcast, Scott, because I read books. I read books and books and books and books from all sorts of people. And then I have them on the podcast. And I share the work that they're doing with the listeners. You'll find this odd. I don't talk about myself at all during my podcast.
You don't. I've listened to your episodes. You
yeah.
engage in the conversation, but it's not personally you.
No, I just I enjoy getting the word out about people that are doing amazing things. I sometimes if I find the person's doing something in this space, I'd love to highlight it, right? Like I think that's my way of I want to say giving back, but I think it's certainly a medium that is growing in popularity, and I think that giving other people an opportunity to reach. Sometimes it just takes one person hearing one thing in a completely random environment to change or add value or change the trajectory of that person's life. And so I love meeting people and engaging. This, like our communications and conversations, Scott.
Right.
I mean, it's been phenomenal. I love it. It fills my cup, right? It adds value to my life. And so I have the Sometimes Heroes Need Help podcast. It's on all the major platforms, Apple, Spotify, and Google, and all that good stuff. And I appreciate you mentioning everything and kind of giving folks a roadmap to find me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think what you're doing, John, is phenomenal, and we need to get that voice out there, because it's not, like I said, you're not just protecting the law enforcement officer from their own challenges, but if they're happy and fulfilled in their own life, if it's physical fitness, mental fitness, financial fitness, if they're happy at home, they're going to be better officers. They're going to
100%.
Which translates to they're better serving their communities. They're better serving the people that they're out there trying to protect, because the one thing that's innate in law enforcement, you guys are protectors. I know the job says protect and serve, and many times it's more serve than protect, but the reality of it is you guys protect people, and oftentimes the person you don't protect is yourself. And
that's really well said, Scott.
The steps you're putting out there are saying protect yourself, insulate yourself, and if they have a family, that is your backbone, that is your spine.
Right.
Keep them where they are. It's going to make you better. And so I think what you're doing is phenomenal.
Thank you.
But I want to go up to the last few parts here where you mentioned, like I was saying, they help with the communities.
Sure.
Being kindness. How do you think law enforcement can continue to build their strong group? There's a lot of community outreach, and there's a lot of cliches out there, but how do you think that law enforcement can continue to build bridges to the communities they serve, so that element of trust builds between the two, so that communication happens? And when people see a police officer, it's not run the other way. It's thank you, appreciation, communication. How do you think that works?
So I'm going to throw you a curveball on this, because it's not what you think, Scott, because I can tell you what we've been doing. Survey after survey, one of the most trusted professions in the country is law enforcement. Not doctors, not lawyers. People in this profession are trusted. The issues, and I think the way we build trust, isn't with the communities. I think we spend too much time forcing a relationship, and we don't spend enough time building relationships within the four walls of our departments.
Okay. The culture.
Scott, the outside civilian looking in believes that the law enforcement culture, the thin blue line, that we've all got each other's back, and with this tight knit group that supports each other to the death. I wish that was true. And so the toxicity, Scott, there is no one in this profession that'll challenge me on this because they know I'm right. If we did a better job of supporting and building relationships within the four walls of our departments, the officers and deputies that would be going out into the streets would be amazing ambassadors of building trust and connection. It would happen organically.
Right.
But when you undermine, like Scott, 30 years of law enforcement, I didn't lose sleep or have chronic diarrhea or throwing up because of the call that I went on. I had it because of the way I was being treated by my own people.
That's actually disappointing to hear, John.
And I am as real with you as I've ever been, brother. And so so you can see the problem. If the outside world doesn't realize that the struggle comes from within, then all the things that you propose we do are aimed at solving a problem that doesn't exist.
Right.
We need to change the culture within our departments and Now, don't get me wrong, right? There are some agencies that are supportive and that are doing the right thing, that have accountability, that they and the officers and deputies that work for those agencies, they interact and they have an amazing relationship with the communities they serve because they're cared for. They're treated well.
The foundation they're building off of.
Yes, Scott, there are agencies in this country that are offering a $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 signing bonus that can't get applicants.
And that's probably because people reach out because you guys do communicate and hear what the culture is.
It's because of the culture. What is it like working there? Oh, they treat us like crap. They undermine us. Nobody has our back. They don't push back on false narratives that get created in the media. Blah, blah. I don't want to work there.
Yeah, that $60,000 will cause you more headaches than it's worth.
Right. When we talk about recruitment and retention, Scott, retention, you know why guys don't leave agencies for more money. They leave agencies because of poor leadership.
Absolutely.
And so when you get like a Richard Branson, whose business philosophy is, I don't care about the customer. If I take care of my people, they are going to deliver exceptional service. If I take care of my people, they're happy, they're healthy, they're cared for. They know that we support them, and we do substantive things to show that. It's just not lip service. They're going to love going to work. They're going to be amazing ambassadors of the brand.
Yeah, and which will translate to wonderful service to the customer.
Always does. It's the same dynamic, Scott. But we've got experts in the industry trying to solve problems that don't exist. If you support the men and women in law enforcement, if you care for them, if you allow them to raise their hand and say, I need some help, and don't penalize them for it, if you create an environment of support and caring, you're going to have people out there doing God's work, man, and holding the wicked accountable and lifting up the downtrodden, and you are going to have a community relationship that you dreamed of, and it's going to be organic, and it's not going to be of some prefabricated nonsense based on barbecues and free giveaways.
Right.
That's what that's the recipe right now.
Yeah.
And it's not genuine. It's not real. And so it starts with taking care of our people and creating a supportive culture within the four walls of our departments. And when we do that, amazing things happen, not only for the officers, but for the communities we serve.
And, the parallel between that, the four walls of your house is built strong, the four walls of your department are built strong.
That is an excellent parallel, Scott. I couldn't have said that any better.
You said a lot of great things today, John. I don't know. All right, so if you had to do it all over again, though, now knowing how much you've enjoyed Chapter 2, would you still have pursued law enforcement?
Oh, my God, it's the best job in the world, Scott.
Okay.
It's the best job in the world. It is, it has given me more than it's taken.
That's good. And that's what you want. You want to know you're coming out better than when you went in, that you received it. All right, so, listeners around, we talked about officers are seeing some tragedies happening the last few weeks.
Sure.
Our listeners, of course, they also experience different types of tragedies, and they sometimes get themselves in dangerous situations.
Sure.
So if you're offering a safety tip, what is Sergeant John Kelly's safety tip to the individuals in the community that they should practice to keep themselves safe?
Ooh, to keep yourself safe. I'll be real general. Situational awareness. Get your head out of your phone and be aware. We see some funny videos of people walking and tripping into fountains because they're in their phone. Well, that could have easily have been a car when they were trying to cross the street, or somebody with some ill intent, coming behind them. Or I think that if maintaining, you don't need to be on do a SWAT roll every time you enter a building or are waiting to turn a corner, but having a basic level of situational awareness, knowing what's going on around you. If you think something is weird or out of place, don't dismiss it.
Trust your gut, right?
Trust your gut. If you walk out of the store and there's some characters hanging around, walk back in the store and ask for security to give you an escort. Call 911 and say, something isn't right. I'd like an escort to my car. Do you know we're responding to that? And we're going to get there quickly. That's what we do. We that's a service call that if my wife calls, I expect you showing up, right? I mean, my daughter calls, I expect. So if it doesn't, trust your gut, maintain some situational awareness, and listen to your gut. Yeah, man.
Well, Sergeant Kelly, this has been awesome. It's been a fun conversation. I knew when we first started talking, we'd probably have a fun conversation. So your authenticity is awesome. Your compassion for the people, but yet your passion for what you're doing as a life coach, 30 years of dedicated law enforcement with Broward County. I don't know what more we can say good things about it, but
I appreciate it, man. Yeah. I thank you so much for this opportunity. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, Scott.
Mutual on that one, sir. And I'm grateful for your willingness to participate in this getting to know your local Leo segment. I'm hoping more folks will, from hearing from the stories you've shared today and the trials and tribulation that you experience in life that I know other people go through as well, they'll actually see that law enforcement does this too, and that respect will be restored. But again, there's some cultural things you mentioned I think are key. Sure. But I again truly appreciate your time, all you've shared with us, and thank you for joining the Your Positive Lens podcast today.
Scott, it's been my pleasure. Thank you, brother.
Likewise, sir. Take care.
If you liked this episode, follow us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Provide us your feedback in the comments and leave us a rating or review. We truly appreciate your opinion. And then follow us on LinkedIn or Facebook to get all the latest updates. Remember, you can always find places that will share negative law enforcement news stories. But here at Your Positive Lens, you will only find your positive law enforcement news stories. Once again, I'm your host, Scott T. Thanks for listening, and we'll capture you on the next Your Positive Lens.